Okay. We are live. Welcome, Mr. Coulter, to the Cornerstone Planning Group monthly webinar. So thank you for joining. We'll give some people a few moments to join.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Glad to have you. As busy as you are, for you to carve out half hour, 40 minutes on this great topic is we are extremely grateful that you were able to carve this out of your busy day. So, and I heard you had a heavy workout this morning, so I'm glad you're bright-eyed here and ready to rock and roll.
Only had a heavy workout because I knew I'd be talking to you.
Oh, here we
You got to
go.
level up your game when you're working with
All
Carmine.
right. Let me go find my boots. It's getting deep in here, everyone. Give everyone just a couple more minutes to log in. Um, yeah, looking forward to this weekend though. Weather's going to be, how's the weather down by you guys?
It's excellent. It's a great time of year in Atlanta, Georgia.
Mm, yeah, it's not too hot, but it's just right. Because when it
That's
gets
right.
hot, well, what's not called Hotlanta for nothing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
For
Won't be
sure.
fun in a couple of months.
You'll be coming up here to get some relief.
That's right.
Yes, sir. All right, let's kick this off here. So this is exciting because this is a topic you and I spoke about it. And in fact, I think our conversation about this topic, if we just recorded our half-hour phone call, could have been the webinar or a podcast. Not all independence is created equal, and that's the title. But Jay and I are going to break down when we're speaking to advisors, the term independence means different things to everyone, including me, including Jay. Um, you know, it's such a I don't know if you used it. I don't know what term you would use, but you ask 100 advisors what their definition of independence is, and you'll get 150 different answers, possibly. But that being said, we're going to dissect not all 150 for sure, but let me just introduce my friend Jay Coulter. Um, his bio is so long, we may actually need another webinar only because he's accomplished so much. So again, grateful to have him. He's Chief Executive Officer of Titleist Asset Management. He's been in the industry 25 years. So I just want to make this note. He's much older than I am, just for the record. 25 years ago, I wasn't even alive yet, but that's, we'll leave that to the naysayers. But 25 years in the financial services industry, he held leadership roles at Morgan Stanley, Lehman, Guggenheim, Schwab. Founder of Resilient Advisor, an industry consulting, coaching, and consulting firm. He's helped launch 11 RIAs in the past decade. Over the course of his career, he's also helped launch multiple ETFs, including one of the industry's first commodity ETFs, which raised over $800 million and was sold to WisdomTree. He's the author of 3 books and host the Resilient Advisor podcast. That is just about the longest, and correct me if I'm wrong, the longest running podcast in our industry. Right, Jay?
It's not the longest, but it is one of the longest for sure.
One of the longest for sure. Let's leave it. Let's say the longest. Someone fact check me. All good. All that being said, you talk about someone that's had a journey through a lot of important roles in our industry to end up CEO of a firm, and he's helped coaching and advisors, much like we do here, that I do here. So coaching advisors prior to becoming CEO, I mean, that really gives Jay both sides of the fence perspective. I mean, again, so grateful to have him here. But let's frame up, what the hell are we talking about today? When we talk about independence, and we're talking about when I'm engaging with a potential advisor that's looking at Cornerstone, or Jay's talking to someone that's looking at Titleist as an option, we are mostly talking to advisors in a constrained environment, and they're looking for quote unquote independence. I'm going to use me as an example. Independence for me, when I left the insurance industry, I was an advisor at one of the large insurance companies for 17 years. My independence was, I don't want a selling requirement. I have to sell a certain amount of product in a certain amount of time frame. That was my definition of independence, of being independent of that piece. But you ask 100 advisors, you get 110 different answers. That was my number one priority of independence. The second would be, technology. The third were compliance constraints, and the list goes on and on. But when an advisor is looking for independence, I think we can all agree, be very clear on what your definition of independence is, because that will help you navigate looking at options and doing your due diligence around firm options. Jay, anything to add on kind of the definition of independence?
Yeah. First, thank you for the kind intro. You could really have just summed it all up and said Jay's old, has lots of gray hair, and has been around a long time. But I could bring you around.
I said that.
That's right. And I appreciate this conversation. Like you mentioned, we actually had this conversation offline. I have this conversation almost on a daily basis. And my daughter is studying for the SATs, and the SAT word to describe what you're talking about is nebulous. It is really hard to ascertain exactly what's going on in the independent space. It confuses advisors as they look at it. And really, Carmine, where this particular webinar could be helpful for advisors is we're coming at it from a place of educating as opposed to getting your information from either a well-meaning custodial rep or a recruiter, or the worst person to ever give you information is another advisor, because they're advisors. They don't know what they're doing. So to kind of frame what you're talking about, when you think about what an advisor is trying to accomplish, what they really need to think through is what independence means to them, because it means different things to different people. And advisors typically don't define that well before they start the journey of looking at different platform providers or whether they want to go fully independent on their own. And then the second component of this decision framework, and whenever an advisor calls me and says, hey, Jay, I think I want to go independent, we want to map out not what it looks like over the next 12 months. That usually involves a check, a painful transition. Maybe you're worrying about branding. What you really want to map out is where do you want to be in 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years first? Because what you might end up doing is building the right house, but on the wrong land. And that's a mistake that's hard to come back from. And you can get in front of it on the front end.
That's such a great point. Reverse engineering. I just spoke to an advisor last week, and him and his second in command were questioning me around 3 firms they were looking at. And they asked me my opinion. My answer was, is none of the above an option, right? But I did preface it with, I'm biased, right? Because I already know their models and everything. But the lesson is like, hey, you shouldn't even be vetting firms yet until you to your point, reverse engineer what you want your practice to look like 10 years from now. Reverse engineer about who's the best partner that I could partner with today that we have we have alignment. We have true alignment where I can build this here. Because a comment came up, hey, we're going to go here for a couple of years and we'll wind up going somewhere else. You don't want to do 2 pain. No one wants to do 1 painful transition. Who wants to do 2? If you're very clear on the practice you want to build and there's 100 firm options out there, being very clear, reverse engineer, and it will narrow it down to maybe a third of them or 20% of them. So the due diligence process is not that scary once you're very clear on when the vision is clear, decisions are easy. And that needs to start before you even start vetting options and save you a lot of time and headache and a lot of confusion as well.
Yep.
And again, independence to an advisor that's here at Cornerstone, it was for this person, my succession, I can't do it at my firm. My firm won't allow it the way I want to do it. Okay, that's completely different than my independent narrative of no selling requirement. He was actually kind of okay at his firm other than the succession. Is that independence? In his definition, it was. But everyone is different, and there's so many different types of models and different, really, and Jay, you could probably agree with this, is that they're not really chasing independence, they're chasing control. It could be control of how they serve their clients, control on succession, control on technology, right? So that, would you agree it's kind of I think that's one of the major common threads when someone's shopping?
I like to say independence is not the goal, control is the goal. But you have to define what it is that you want to control. One of the more common conversations I have is with a wirehouse advisor calls and says they want to start an RIA. And I generally know where the conversation is going to go. And at the end of it, and I'm sure you've been through it as well, Carmine, they don't want to start their own firm. They want control over certain aspects of the business, and they're best suited partnering with somebody to go and gain those control mechanisms. Now, some folks, it is going out and starting their own RIA, but trying to understand what it is you want to control and then optimize for is the most important part at this point of the journey for the advisor.
Great point. That is a great point. I just spoke to someone through a third party. We haven't connected yet. He went to, this was an option for him years ago. We didn't really go down the path other than a very brief phone call. And he went somewhere for a check. Okay. He's not even 3 years in, and he wants to leave, and he's okay paying off the note. Now, imagine the disruption to his clients that at some point they're making 2 transitions in 3 years. Okay, they have to sign the DocuSign form. We're not asking the clients to dig a ditch. But the clients are now, every time, and I've said this before, I want every advisor should go through at least one transition in their career, because you're actually asking your clients to rehire you again. And that strengthens the relationship, because they're going to say, Jay would call me up. I'm his client. Carmine, I'm changing firms. These are the reasons why. This is the new firm information. There's a DocuSign. I'm immediately, as the client, going to go back and go, of course I'm going with Jay. Look at all the great things she's done for me and my family. He was there when this happened and that happened. Of course. Great. Send it over. I'll click to sign. But when you do it, in multiple times in a short time period, it's like, well, what's going on? I love you, Jay, but didn't I just do this a couple of years ago? And we went from this platform to that platform, and it just causes confusion. It causes the clients to think that maybe something's not right. So if you're going to make the move, what Jay had said, reverse engineer it, make a move, not one of multiple moves.
Carmine, I love that framework of thinking about it as an exercise of getting your clients to rehire you. Now, that probably creates some anxiety for an advisor when they hear that, but it's shocking to most advisors how many clients come with them, how few leave. There's always one that comes that you didn't think was going to come and one that doesn't, but they were just looking for the opportunity. One thing to also consider if you're early in your journey, it's not just making a bad move and having to make another move. The other mistake advisors make is they join a platform that isn't solid, and the platform or the firm makes a move. Too many times advisors have moved to a company and say their custodian is Schwab, and then the firm decides they are going to require all of their advisors to move to LPL, Raymond James. I'm not trying to pick on anybody in particular, but that is a real world use case where you have to be in control, where you have to be very mindful of where you have control and where you don't, because that really is what independence means.
Yeah. So talk to any United Capital advisor, talk to anyone at Commonwealth. You and I know many people in common at Commonwealth. Many people common at Commonwealth. Yeah, that was by accident. You talk about culture change overnight. These advisors didn't ask for it. They were forced into it. And not that it's a bad thing. I'm sure there's a lot of advisors that were happy with the move. Maybe there's increased capabilities or whatever. But I don't know if it's 100% avoidable in every scenario. Just be very clear if you're talking to the firm. This is a great question to ask the firm. What's your vision for the firm? What's your 5 and 10-year vision? Is it to sell?
Mandatory. That's a mandatory question.
Right. It really should be.
Yeah.
But look at the ownership structure. So again, I don't think there's any wrong models in the industry. They're just different. When it's a private equity backed or private equity partnered firm, their vision could be different than yours. But if they're looking to monetize in 5 years, and that's your retirement track is 5 years, and that was your plan, you have alignment. Like, go. Like, that makes sense. But if your narrative is like, I don't want to sell, I'm only 10 years in the industry, I got another 25, 30 years, I love not that it's wrong, just be aware so it's not a surprise when it does happen. So ask a lot of questions on firm vision. Who are the owners? Is this going to be a 100-year company, or are you taking on partners? And is there equity opportunities for an advisor? Like, these are the things you should be asking every single firm you talk to.
And then if you're part of a team and you're the Gen 2 advisor, it's very important to understand where the incentives lie for the senior advisors and, of course, the firm that you're joining. Carmen, I echo what you said around private equity. There is nothing wrong with it. There are opportunities, and I've encouraged advisors to go join PE-backed shops because of where they were in their career and the opportunities that presented for the business that they had.
Yeah.
But I'm hard-pressed to find somebody that still has a long runway in front of them selling out today, given the way you can grow your business over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years to affiliate with that type of platform. So it's just a
Yeah.
matter of finding the right fit for where you are. And it all gets back to what we talked about at the beginning. You got to lay out that vision 3, 5, and 10 before you make the decision, because year one doesn't matter at that stage.
Great. Perfect. Perfect way to frame it up. Let's break down the models. So let's talk to the advisors that are out there that are looking at independence, whatever their definition is, or just not being at their current firm and looking for a firm that solves that whatever control problem they have. So we do a quick breakdown of the models. You have broker dealers, you have independent broker dealers, you have RIAs, platform RIAs, large aggregators. Like if you were to break it down, there's five slots or 5 silos every firm can fit into. Jay, I'm going to ask for your help through this because again, you're much older than me, and I say that we're like 5 years apart, by the way. A broker dealer. So think of traditional, right? This would be a traditional, could be a wirehouse, could be, like an insurance company that is BD focused, right? They have products and things like that. This is where I'm seeing most, and well, not just seeing, even the industry saying, this is where most of the exits are happening from, or these BDs that have some control, whether you're a W-2 advisor in a wirehouse, or you're an insurance company like I was, with selling requirements to keep your contract, right? So think of that I can't even say broker dealer anymore. I say broken dealer. It's ingrained. But think of the traditional broker dealer as and it could have an RIA component as well. Most of them do, but there's guardrails, there's constraints, right? So that's kind of level one. An independent BD, Jay, why don't you take this one? Like, what would be the differentiating factors between this and a traditional broker dealer?
Yeah. So, Carmine, here's how I set it up when I'm explaining it to an advisor that's just starting their journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about the wirehouse world, the traditional broker dealer, if you're at Merrill Lynch and you're looking at Morgan Stanley, UBS, or Wells Fargo, there's a common language and a common structure. You're talking about payouts. You're talking about sales assistants per FTE, per revenue type metrics. And you're talking about branch managers, regional managers, and requirements that are very common. When you go to the independent broker-dealer space, you have a lot of that spill over, but there's a little bit more freedom that comes along with that, and it tends to get a little more, to use another SAT word, or the same SAT word, nebulous, when you look across the industry, whether it is an insurance independent broker-dealer or a traditional independent. Then you have the RIA space, which has its own set of language, and then they have different types of RIAs. You can go and set up your own solo shop, or you can go and join a firm. You can join a firm that is regional, or you can join a national platform. You can join one that is backed by a capital partner, is the language they like to use, which of course is private equity, or one that's been put together and cobbled together. And this is the most dangerous one, by some folks who've created an ensemble because they were really good advisors and they think that people could come and leverage their sales assistants and have a good experience. And this is where it gets really murky, and it gets back to first principles. The advisor that wants to make a move needs to figure out the business they want in 3, 5, and 10 years, and then start exploring which of those paths make the most sense based upon what they want to build. Because it gets very hard to compare apples to apples once you leave that wirehouse world. What do you think of that framework?
It's perfect. It's perfect because I read this in a book, and I can't think of the name, and I don't want to name it because then you're going to have to buy it, and then you're going to complain that I'm costing you more money every time we talk. So I'll keep it to myself because, in fact, I don't remember which one it was. I think it was the one I actually gave you to buy. I'm sorry. I don't have to. You don't have to spend money today, at least. When it comes to, I guess, the difference between like an independent RA, like an RA aggregator, because you can go to an RA, but then you got to peel the onion and say, look, or speak to an RA. Who's your owner? Who owns? What's your vision? Right? Because if they ask you or me or one of the large national aggregators out there that are just buying up practices, the answers are much, much different. Right? What our firm vision is. Just like an independent BD, you just going to an independent RIA is not enough. In fact, one of the advisors that joined us was at a truly independent RIA. But when he peeled the onion and said, well, here's the constraints I'm hitting. I'm hitting ceilings and I'm hitting guardrails. When he spoke to us, he's like, none of this exists here. You could support me. The number one thing that I want to do for clients. He left. So it's not so much the framework. You got to get under the hood and say, okay, you're an independent RIA. Great. How do you support advisors? What's your firm vision? And things like that. I mean, it really is, it's so new. It's complicated. And there's an exercise that I bring advisors through that I recommend every advisor to do is when we're talking to them, we call this primaries and secondaries. It's an exercise we bring them through. Okay, great. Give us your primary concerns. These are the deal breakers. These are the go, no go items that you need to have or the new firm needs to have in order for you to say yes. Usually that's 2 or 3 like go, no go items. And then there's secondaries. And I want you to list out all the things that are important that the new firm support you on and offer, but they're not deal breakers. On our next call, we go through that line item by line item, and we'll know right from the get-go for a match. Now, if you follow that framework, if you're talking to multiple firms and you keep that same framework in like an Excel spreadsheet, it's gonna be very easy for you to knock out options. Because it's all about whittling down, because what these firms will do, and Jay, we spoke about this, they are great at dog and pony shows. They are fantastic at waiving checks, pulling in board members into conversations with you that you'll never speak to after you say yes to them. It's really good. It's a show. But that is binary. If they can't allow you to do this one primary thing that you need, or this is your goal, I don't care how many steak dinners they take you to, they should be off your list. Like, don't get sucked into the shiny object thing because they're really good at that exercise.
Especially with technology. I tell you, Carmine, every model is optimized for something, and then there's a compromise somewhere else. Every model out there. So you have to figure out, again, going back to first principles, what do you want, and optimize for that, and then what are you giving up in return for that? And thinking that through the lens you just laid out is a very powerful framework to really identifying the type of platform that would make the most sense for you, whether it was, a broker-dealer, independent, RIA, or join a national firm.
Yeah, and there's no perfect model. There's trade-offs, right? So, hey, this firm will allow me to charge fees for consulting, but they don't have they're not with the custodian that I would prefer, right? But you have to be comfortable. Again, if that is a primary, secondary concern, framing those out would actually help you make a decision better or easier, I think, having that data. And every model can solve a problem, but it could create a different one.
Mm-hmm.
You never know. But again, keeping that data tight when you're through due diligence, it's a real good comparison tool. And it's not about selecting the best option. It's about eliminating the ones that are not the best options. And you will soon get down to a select 2, maybe 3.
Yep. And I would encourage you at that stage, if you've identified a couple of potential partners, go and find advisors on that platform who've accomplished what you want to accomplish over the next 3, 5, and 10 years, and cold call them. Have a conversation and figure out what constraints slowed them down and how the platform potentially helped them achieve those goals quicker. And that'll give you a great lens into the culture of the organization and whether the leaders who are pitching you to join them are actually being truthful about what the real opportunity is.
Great idea. Cold calling is important too, because if you're asking the recruiter, I don't know why I use air quotes for that, a recruiter, they're going to give you to the advisor that they're close with, right? You would all do it, so I'm not harming it, but to cold call someone makes a lot of sense. But, let's talk about things that get overlooked. And we touch on this, like the trade-offs, the real trade-offs don't happen in the beginning because you're in the honeymoon phase, but they usually show up over time. And that friction is probably very low in the beginning, and it grows over time. And what looks good up front versus what shows up later. And this goes back to the monetary benefits of these larger aggregators that have coffers of money to write checks, right? And I would always say, look, there's no free money. Like, Jay, we're both obviously in tune with the finances at our firm, the economics. We don't have piles of money. I'll show you my office. There's no sacks of cash sitting around to just write checks. We're all business people here. And everyone, if you're an advisor in this industry, I'm assuming you're smart. They're making it somewhere. Find out where. You may be okay with it. It may fit your it all may be good. Just make sure you have full disclosure. Like, what am I giving up if you're giving me this up front? And this goes back to what Jay had said. Cold call someone at the firm, because support versus the actual experience that someone's getting. That advisor you cold call would say, yeah, they told me all this and it was all true. Just as subscribed, great. Or, hey, they told me the same things and look, this changed over time. Get all that data up front. I mean, I think that's really, really important. Will save you a lot of time and money, for sure.
Yeah, a payout that seems unreasonably high and an upfront check historically has led to very, very poor service on the back end for the advisor, because the money has to go somewhere, and it's going to the advisor instead of the resources to support. And so it's very important that, to your point, Carmine, that you understand exactly what support you're going to have, where those resources are. And then here's the important part, especially for large companies. Are you going to have access to leaders going forward? They're there when you're having the initial conversations, but when you would like the company to vet a new piece of technology that you think could be impactful to your practice, is somebody from the C-suite going to hear your case and listen to you? Or are you going to be stuck dealing with a business coach or consultant at the regional level that's just going to go ahead and tell you, we can't keep moving forward?
That is a great point. And that's something that I felt when I was at the big insurance BDRA, that I was one of thousands. And I felt like one of thousands, even though I was on their board for 7 years. I still hit that operational constraint and the, being shut out of decisions and being ghosted by compliance people. That's always a good one, because when the answer is no, they don't give you no fast. They wait, because hopefully you'll go away. And I've been through that. But, here, and I know there as well with you, your advisors have your direct line, just like here. If they want a piece of tech approved or an investment option approved because there's a case for it, great, let's get it done. But much different in the larger, when you have institutions with 500, 800, 5,000 advisors, it's tough. It's going to be, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's much different.
Well, they have to manage for scale, and this is a little crass. They have to manage for the lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
And that goes from technology to marketing. We had an advisor join us from a larger firm, and he was so surprised at how quick our approval process is for, a podcast he was doing, some webinars, some email letters. And the reason was simple. Like, his previous firm had 15,000 people that they had to manage all the compliance requests. If they let one person operate in an area that required a little extra oversight, they were going to have to let 15,000 people do it. And that is to me, that's one of the number one use cases for being independent.
Yeah, and size matters. I know we don't want to hear that, but it does, especially men. But let's talk about the difference in how an advisor would perceive or experience a difference in sizes of firms. So there's pros and cons to both. Like, I'll let me touch on larger firms, and Jay, you get the smaller firms, positives and negatives here. But the pros for a larger firm of the 800, 1,000, 5,000 advisors is obviously infrastructure. There's enough people there. There's a bigger staff usually. There's perceived stability, maybe some name recognition that's important to the advisor. When they're talking to their clients, if they know they're at this firm and everyone in the industry knows that firm name, maybe there is some sense of certainty and stability. Great. The cons is everything's slower. You have much less influence. You're just one of many. You don't traditionally have a seat at the table for decisions. And to Jay's point, much more standardization around, hey, these rules you may have been here for 25 years, but this rule that you don't like, we built it for the person that just got licensed and joined us last month. So in the smaller, more direct models, like a Titleist, like a Cornerstone, Jay, why don't you go over some of the pros and cons of the small to mid-sized firms?
Yeah, here's the way I look at it. So scale gives you access to resources, potentially more resources than a smaller firm, but technology's kind of negating that edge a little bit. But with the smaller firms, as long as you've joined the right organization, you can maintain your influence inside the organization, your access to leadership and decision makers. And here's the important one in the age of AI. and this can't be discounted at all.
Mm,
Speed. The way we are iterating our technology so quickly today because of all the new AI tools. Now, we are being very methodical about it and diligent, but we are beta testing some really cool stuff that larger firms could not do and could not get to market quick. We've been able to get some of these newer technologies approved much faster than organizations that have 10 and 20,000 advisors, because it takes a lot to roll that out. And the rate of change in technology, these smaller firms, smaller platforms, their ability to iterate is going to be a difference maker versus the bigger organizations.
yeah. I mean, that's, we just had a meeting this morning here about our AI platform we're building out. And the difference is these larger firms are building out AI platforms to replace advisors because their biggest cost is advisors. Here, we're building it to empower our advisors and our staff. Let's get rid of the low day-to-day, low-level tasks, and let's empower people to be more strategic thinkers. And let's free up the advisor's time and the advisor staff time with some of the things and automate. We use a lot of automations to get the same job done, just taking less time. And
that is so good. That line is perfect. You're using AI to empower the advisor, not replace the advisor.
yeah, so we call it AEAI, Advisor Empowering Artificial Intelligence, not just AI. So that's the name of our platform. So everything we're doing internally is to empower the advisor using AI as a tool instead of using it to replace. Like obviously we would not do that, but some of the wires are doing it. I can't say who, but their largest cost on the balance sheet is paying an advisor. So obviously they're looking at profitability because long-term planning for a publicly traded company is 90 days. Next shareholder meeting. So yeah, companies are experimenting with replacing the advisor experience with a full AI tool, which we have absolutely no interest in doing. But we're building it out as a great tool to allow the advisors time to more strategically think, spend more time with clients, spend more time on personal development, or spend some time with their family. Doesn't really matter. All I know is we're doing a lot of low-level task things that are not creating any value other than getting the task done, and we need to be better than that.
Excellent.
We do. It is, again, this is very complicated. If we just kind of encapsulate this, like think of things when you're vetting firms. What is your access to leadership? Like Jay had said, what's the speed of decision-making? Your ability to influence your environment. More importantly, I've talked about this many times in this webinar, but having true alignment. So let me give you an example. I spoke to someone, and this firm is very product-based, insurance product-based. This advisor is very focused on growing AUM and charging fees for planning. Like that's their two. I said, right, you may have some alignment where, okay, payout is this. If you do this, you get that. So there's like partial alignment. When true alignment happens is when your vision and the firm's vision completely match. That's when 1 + 1 can equal 3. That's when you know the track you're running on is the right one. And that's when you know your 10-year vision is aligned with how your firm's built out today. We've seen that dramatic changes here with advisors' practices once we took them out of that environment that was constraining them. And they've grown more in a year or two here than they did their whole career prior. Only because different track to run on.
A different track that doesn't have the shackles of the legacy platforms. I've seen it, and I don't even have to talk my own business at Titleist. I've seen this at other firms. When somebody leaves a constrained environment and they are motivated, they are able to go and grow exponentially faster than the rest of the industry, which is only 2 to 4%. And it is life-changing for the advisor.
Yeah, it is hard, especially for someone. When the insurance company I was at, they did a very good job at shielding us from any outside information. I only got access to what was possible outside the walls of that insurance company by hiring external coaches. So as you know, Jay, I'm the byproduct of personal development. I have 4 coaches right now, and I've always had a business coach in 2009 when I couldn't afford one and have not stopped. When I was in those environments, talking to other advisors at conferences that were not company specific, what do you mean you don't have that there? And then you start to realize that there's rules that the company instills, then there's industry rules. governed by FINRA or SEC. You get really good at, wait, is that a company? That's a company role. Why okay, well, I'm doing this for nothing because the company thinks I need to do it. So I was getting drips over the years of like, that's a company thing, not an industry thing. And at some point, those drips turned into a broken pipe. And then I went from, I probably should go to where's the nearest exit, right? Pretty easy. And we can tell by talking to a potential advisor, there's two types of people. A guy had golden handcuffs because those companies are really good monetarily of keeping you there, right? And there's two types of people. There's the first type that says, oh my God, look at these beautiful handcuffs. They're gold and they're 24 karat and look how shiny they are, right? And then there's people like me that say, get these off me right now. How do I get them off? I don't care what color they are, what they're worth. I need them off. 8 out of 10, we're talking to the people that gotten to the point of like, get them off. How do I get them off? How fast can I do it? Whereas we've done some intro calls with people who are like, no, but they treat, this is the, and I don't have a problem with this problem. Great. That's fine. The independent channel is not for everyone. In fact, I think I find this more with the younger advisors. They feel much more comfortable with the big enterprise models because they like the size. They like that there's X amount of staff people. One brought up, oh, I like this firm because they have, 3 custodial options. And I said, oh, do you use 3 now? No. It goes, I don't really know why I would ever need it. I just like to know that it's there. Which I scratched my head a bit. Or did you ever do that thing when you look at your phone? I'm like, what did he just say? And it's fine because I was kind of like, okay, if you're using 3, I get it. You have alignment, but I don't know when I'll ever need that. I said, well, in my head, I'm like, well, don't make your decision based on that if you don't use it. So it's just, this goes back to the shiny object thing. That firm, these recruiters are really good. And these firms are really good at dog and ponying. Separate that, detach yourself from that part, keep really good data on the pros and cons of each firm and in a format where you can quickly start not selecting, but eliminating the ones that you do not align with.
Well, it goes back to the exercise you recommended earlier in this webinar. What's a priority and what's not, and keep that running list as you go through the exercise of doing your due diligence.
And we get a lot of conversations around tucking in versus starting my own. And I always say this, I'm like, there's no wrong way. If you're getting out of a constrained environment, I think starting your own or tucking in, you're going to be a better situation either way. Here's the trade-off. If we go back to trade-offs, by estimation, about 30% of your time will be spent on building and maintaining the entity. Okay, because there's a lot of things that have to happen at the entity level for it to operate. You may say, hey, look, that's fine. I'm excited. That gives me energy. Roger that. Go for it. But I have asked multiple advisors, who do you want to be a hero to? And I want to help my clients with this problem. I want to help people retire early. I work with family with special needs children. It was one that said, I just want to create a financial environment that ensures the stability of the level of care. Great, all great. But if 30% of your time was gone, that poses a problem. Your ability to scale gets reduced. Your ability to serve your clients gets reduced. For those people that the hero is the end client, you should probably look at tucking in. Because I think you're going to
one
save a lot of
SEC
time.
audit. Like, see if you can go and just sit in the room as a firm goes through an SEC audit and then decide if that's what you want to do. I think 30% is generous. I think it's more like 50 to 60, especially your first couple of years. And that's why affiliation makes the most sense for 95% of the advisors out there.
Also economy, right? And I did 30 to 50 was my initial, but I always use the lower end. Some people may be much more efficient than I am. Great. But even 30% is a non-negotiable for me because I still have a certain amount of time I want to take off, be with my family. I have enough hobbies to keep me busy for multiple lifetimes. If I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? That's a filter I use a lot. And if your end user, your end client, your end win for you and your why is client impact, I don't believe it would be in your best interest or your client's best interest for you to be running a firm because you're wearing 2 hats. And as who said this? Ed Milet, where focus goes, energy flows. So you'll be wearing, imagine you're in the call with an SEC audit in the morning, you have a client review meetings in the afternoon. That's a big change in personalities. That's a big change. Your energy is going to be completely. We went through an audit. It took 4 months. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. You would have thought we were Goldman Sachs, but that's a traditional SEC audit. And they found nothing, no issues, but it took 4 months. And they would send you, and you've been through this, they send you an info request. It's not 3 things. It's 28 items. You have to send them. And if you don't have it within 24 hours, they email you, hey, want to make sure you got our email. Yeah, I'm on item 8 of 27. We just need a moment. Like, we just have to shut our operation down to gather this data. But it was a great exercise. We learned a lot. They were great. They were really, really good people. They pointed out some things that we again, no violate, nothing, but they're like, hey, just going forward, you may want to think of this. I'm like, oh, okay. Never thought of that before. But you have to be willing to put that time aside. And another filter I use is, does this give me energy or take energy away? And if it takes energy away from me, I don't do it. My dopamine release, what gives me energy, is helping advisors. It always has been. I mentored my first advisor in 2005. Man, I am as old as you. Shoot. I'm doing the math now in my head. Damn it. But that always gave me energy. I was in the MDRT mentor aspirin program in 05 until I left the insurance world. And I enjoyed it, mentoring 2-3 people a year. And I enjoyed every minute of it. So for me, owning and coaching and consulting with our advisor teams, help them grow, was in my DNA already. So I would argue at least you need to go down a rabbit hole of a tuck-in versus owning if your hero is the client.
It's a great exercise.
So we have a couple questions here. John, take a moment. Let's just see if we hit them already. I think that one we did. How should an advisor think about the 3 roles? Oh, so the 3 roles, the 3 identities. We talk about the identities of an advisor. And this is credit to Joe Lucas. This is who built this framework out. Every advisor has 3 identities. They're an advisor to their client. They're a business owner. This is where you rent space. This is your workers' comp, your payroll. And then there's the entrepreneur. Where's the industry going and how are we pivoting? 90+% of advisors rock star the advisor chair all day. They're great advisors to the clients. That gives them energy. Not so good in the business owner seat and not so good in the entrepreneurial seat. And if you're that advisor tucking in, having someone helping you with back office, which we both do, and pivoting where the industry is going, which we both help with, only empowers you to be more of an advisor. And if that's your goal, partnering or tucking in is really a great option. Really great option. Let me see here. What does it look like to have support without giving up ownership of the business? Great question. We have an internal service team here that helps the advisors with, this is one of the examples, helps them with their back office and their middle office. So it's basically like they have an EA. It's one of our staff people internally. Client doesn't know. You're basically subbing out your back and middle office functions completely. So you can, that empowers you just be an advisor. Go out there, see your clients, do some business development, detach and go read some books or do whatever it is you do. We got you. That's kind of the mantra here. And Jay, I'm sure you guys have something very similar as well at Titleist.
Yes.
Let's see here. That was answered. All right, great. The questions are up to date. All right, so we're coming up on the tail end here. I don't want to hold up many people here. I think that kind of wraps up the points that we wanted to make. But if we encapsulate some of the things, again, access to leadership, speed of decision-making, interdependence. So that's a really good term of really like a tuck-in model. Or instead of starting your own, you're still running your own practice. So just to let's dispel a myth. A typical tuck-in relationship with a firm, with many firms, and just like Cornerstone and Titleist, you own your clients. Okay, we don't dictate anything. You're free to charge fees. You're free to do it. It's running your own. And think of a tuck-in model as economies of scale when it comes to compliance and technology backbone and advisor support. So we're able to have all these internal staff people here working with the advisors, and it's less of a cost for them going out to hire their own and having to train them and inspire them and house them. We can do it through economies of scale and our technology. So that's a really good interdependence. You're still you're tucked in, but you're still in that's your business. That's your business. You get to run the way you want. But if you want to, anyone here has any additional questions, concerns, wants to have a completely confidential conversation with Jay or myself, please reach out to us. We'd love to talk. The goal today was to get as much information out to people that are on the fence and just don't know where the next step is. And if we were to encapsulate, the next step was do that vision plan, then reverse engineer and where can I pull this off best? What type of firm can I pull this off best at? And then ask yourself, who do you need to become to pull it off? Personally, that's a whole different conversation. That's a whole different webinar on who do you need to become to pull your goal off. But thank you so much for your time, Jay. It's been great. I could talk for 2 hours on this. No one wants to hear it, but I can certainly do it.
Well, Carmine, thanks for having me. Really appreciated the conversation, and it's amazing how well aligned our businesses are.
Yes, sir. And you have a good day. Anyone wants to reach out to Jay, reach out to him, Jay Coulter on LinkedIn, and reach out to me, Carmine Corino on LinkedIn. Just send us a note. We'll be happy to connect if you have any questions. If there's any way we can help you make some really good decisions without stepping in the minefield we walk through already, please reach out. We'd love to chat. Thanks and have a great day.